Cybersecurity and society. We're going to be looking at cyber basic concepts. First thing we're going to be looking into is cyber ethics, and we want to make sure we understand what this concept is. So the learning objectives for this module is going to be the students will be able to define technology, will be able to identify the unique features of cyber technology, will be able to define cyber ethics, will be able to explain the significance of cyber ethics in the area of privacy, security, and other areas of ethical concern. And then finally, we'll be able to discuss special nature of cyber ethics as a subfield of ethics. So some questions that usually come and usually arise is, what is technology? What is cyber technology? What, if anything, is unique or different with it? What is cyber ethics? What is unique about ethical issues that arise with the use of the prevalence of cyber technology? So these are really pertinent questions that we should ask about the world within that we are functioning, about how is technology, cyber technology, and more importantly, cyber ethics. So what is technology? And again, the definition, this is loosely, is technology is the process by which humans modify nature to meet their needs and wants. Technology is a body of knowledge that is devoted to creating tools and processes. Technology changes the way we communicate, the way we learn, the way we relax, the way we stay healthy, the way we purchase products. For example, many of these are all how technology functions in our lives. It changes the way we actually live. So technology has many different facets in how it interacts with our lives from day to day. Let's think about this question and this statement. Which of these statements do you think are actually true or false? Technology equates with progress, technology is always good, and technology changes society. So if we think about this and reflect, we can pretty much say that the first one, technology equates with progress, we can say that it's true. And then the last one, technology does change society, because it does have a major impact. Think about when there was no internet and you wanted to get information about any item that you were interested in, what were the steps you had to take back then? And then let's not even mention cell phones and how that's transitioned, how technology has impacted society. Now the second one, technology is always good, is where we want to reflect. Technology has many, many good aspects, but we also have to be careful with all of the risks that it brings. And this is where we're going to see that things like privacy and security are vital when we talk about technology. You cannot have a conversation of technology without discussing privacy and security issues that come along with it. Very important topic. So, how digital, in this case cyber technology, enhances our lives? Well, we know that digital technology is routinely used to enhance the pre-technological products and processes that existed. So for example, like I mentioned, when you needed to find information, let's say, on how to use a certain device, you had to either call the manufacturer, try to see if you could get the information that way. Maybe you would go to a library and look for books or manuals on it. Well, nowadays you can quickly just click on it, search, you'll probably find a YouTube video explaining how to use the widget, or you can find the manual that you're looking for it. It's given the rise to brand new products and processes that have made it possible for new product, process, and activities to exist. This include, new computers, smaller, faster, softwares that are much capable of doing many different things, and of course the internet and the World Wide Web, which without it, we wouldn't have the ability of the connectivity that we have, the level of connectivity that we have nowadays to be able to acquire so much information. So what is unique about cyber technology capability? First of all, the speed. Yes, things can happen much faster now than it used to be. Second of all, the scope. It allows us to communicate and transfer data beyond any capacity we ever had before. But also there has an impact, because technology, any malfunctions, have a greater impact than ever before. And of course, the access to information now is so readily available and so on. When we talk about all of these are vital aspects and capabilities of cyber technology. The impact of malfunctioning. Think about the cell phones. If, for example, your provider goes down for a certain amount of time, it's rendered your cell phone completely useless, unless you're in a Wi-Fi scenario. But if you're using cell access, you don't have the ability to make calls, you don't have the ability to use it outside of a Wi-Fi area. How would you feel? Many people feel very insecure without having connectivity to their cell phone. So the impact is tremendous if you think about it. We've become so reliant on this technology that the speed, scope, and easy access to information is important, but our own comfort zone in knowing that we have that device with us that we can use at any time for connectivity purposes. So technology has woven itself into our fiber, but it's done it in a way that it's faster, it's got greater scope, greater access to information, but there's also that if there's a malfunction, it does have a tremendous impact on us. So cyber ethics is something also that we need to look at. Let's try to define what cyber ethics is. These are ethical issues that arise in these different phases of cyber technology: products, systems, and processes. So when you have cyber ethics and you develop products, systems, and processes, you need to look at how that product is developed, how is it deployed, and its implementation. So there's a lot of goes into this. So when we're building these products or designing them, we want to make sure that when we look at these three aspects, development, deployment, and implementation, that we have done it in an ethical way. And that is a very important problem, because the ethical problems that exist nowadays, are they new, or are they just an extension of what we're dealing with a newer technology? So along those lines, a very popular view among computer ethics is that cyber ethics issues are a new species of old ethical problems. So they're not new, but they are kind of the evolution of the older ethical issues we've been dealing with. So as we were commenting, are these new issues ethical issues or not? And I will tell you that one of the very interesting things is, if you notice there's a link at the bottom, and if you click on it, you will go to the moral machine for MIT. And this is a very interesting simulation. What they're doing there is, imagine that, now we're moving into an era where autonomous vehicles will become much more of a reality. These are vehicles that will drive on their own and be able to navigate obstacles and so on. Well, their scenario is, what happens if one of these autonomous vehicles is going down the road and all of a sudden, for example, you lose your braking system? Now, you have three choices. One choice, you can continue down the road and you can smash and maybe kill yourself. You can swerve to the right, and if you do that, you will run over a young child. Or you can swerve to the left, and if you do that, you will run over an elderly person. So, as an individual, you need to make those choices. As an autonomous vehicle, that vehicle needs to make that choice. So when it makes that choice, somebody actually programmed that into the vehicle so that the vehicle can make a determination and say, okay, well, I have a child on the right, I have an elderly person on the left. One of those will have a great probability of being deceased if I deviate my car in one way or the other. Or the other one, I would crash into the car in front of me, which can bring me bodily harm. So that vehicle, somebody had to program that software so that it makes that determination. So the ethical issues there are immense, because again, the way we view the ethics in this country might be different than they might be viewed in other parts of the world. So are we talking about now developing vehicles that, based upon where they're sold and used, you'll have different morality, or you'll have different ethics involved in how you would handle that particular scenario? Again, if you have an opportunity, go to this website and explore the questions that MIT poses, given that we're moving more of technology being involved in our lives. Let's now look at privacy and security and how they're related. So in this unit, we're going to be looking at the ability to define what is privacy and explain its social, ethical, and cultural dimensions. You will also be able to explain the impact of global scope and the transmission speed of the internet and the ease of data access and sharing on privacy. You will also be able to define security and explain its social, ethical, and cultural dimensions. Be able to describe the relationship between privacy and security in the networked world. And you'll be able to evaluate solutions to security threats in databases, network, and software systems. In addition, you'll be able to utilize appropriate sections of professional code of ethics. Finally, we will be looking at identifying U.S. privacy and security laws specific to such areas as education, healthcare, finance, and child protection. So let's try to answer some of these questions. What do we mean by privacy? What do we mean by security? What is the relationship between these two? How do cybersecurity efforts attempt to protect both privacy and security? What are the ethical responsibilities of computing professionals to protect privacy and security? And finally, what does the U.S. laws have to offer to protect security and enforce compliance? So let's look at the three classical ways of interpreting privacy. One is privacy is control over the kind of and amount of personal information you share with others. Privacy is the right to be left alone. Privacy is having the ability to have an appropriate reputation. And then let's see how each of these interpretations can increase our understanding of privacy. So when we're looking at privacy with regard to the amount of information we share with others, we're looking at the kind of controls that enable you to engage in and maintain different kinds of relationships. So this is very important because you share different amount of information with different individuals based upon the relationships you have with them. So the question you want to think about is this: how does this type of relationship you have with someone determine what personal data you share with them? So you should have the ability to control that, so that based upon the relationships you have, if you have, for example, you have in a job, you have different types of relationships in work. So within the work setting, you have different relationships there. In your personal life, you have different relationships there. In social media, you have certain relationships there. You should have the ability to control what information about you want to be able to share with those individuals. So having that kind of control is one way to look at privacy. The other one is the right to be left alone. And again, in a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, the dissenting opinion said that the right to be left alone is a right guaranteed by the Fourth Amendment. So when we think about this, we're talking about robocalls, we're thinking about maybe cyber stalking, these kind of things that occur in this new society where we're all interconnected. And again, that goes to the question, what are the challenges of achieving a state of being left alone in today's interconnected world? And again, that is a much more difficult scenario nowadays because we're online, we exist in certain blogs, we interact with people, and if you take Facebook for example, if you have a Facebook page and it's public, you open yourself so that you can people can interact with you at will. And you have Twitter, for example, if you have a Twitter account and you want to be able to exchange ideas and tweets, again, we're talking about this. So if you are online, if you are accessible, then it becomes a much greater challenge to be able to enforce the privacy of being left alone. And then the final one, which is your appropriate reputation, is what is your online reputation? Think about that. I mean, are there pictures of you on the internet that people can find? Are there details, facts that they can identify about you? So what do you think should be revealed about you online? Are there limits? Are there any kind of, do you have the right to not have information be revealed about you? And in some cases, people have actually sued different companies who have been publicizing or making available information about individuals. But I will tell you this much: once it gets on the internet, it is so much difficult to be able to rein it back in, because somewhere, somehow, it will get copied, transferred from site to site. So having that ability to remove any details that get on the internet, I would rather prevent it and maintain the reputation you want on the internet, instead of having details out there and then having to now expunge those from the internet. A much greater challenge. So how has cyber technology challenged the whole privacy protection? Well, first of all, if you look at the global scope of the internet is one, the staggering amount of information and data that can be manipulated, how easy it is for you and anyone else to access the shared data, and then of course the transmission speed. At the speed of sending signals, you can have this information be propagated throughout so many places. So obviously technology has increased and has diminished our ability to maintain the privacy that we sometimes might want to solve. So one thing we could do is we could try to look at or rate how technology has, the progression of technology, how it impacts our applications we use or products that we also use. So we typically ask these three questions. What is it created to do or to advance? why is it considered a benefit to society, and what privacy concerns or abuses are important to recognize. So come up with an application and then see if you can apply these 3 questions to it. I'm going to take a stab at it, and I'll say, let's take a look at Facebook. So when we look at Facebook, what was it created to do or to advance? Well, it was done for greater social interaction. It's a way of, for example, discovering old friends, discovering new friends, identifying people of like interests. So it has had, that was the reason why it was created. Now, the question is, and this is one we might not agree upon, what is it considered to be the benefit to society? Well, I mentioned a few already, but some might say that Facebook has gone a bit far in that it's collecting personal data and using that personal data to sell it, and in selling that data, you're being targeted directly by marketers. So we can say that that's a good thing because you're getting information that you are interested in, but at the same time, you're saying that your privacy has been diminished because the data that is being used to be offered to marketers and companies that they're targeting you, you are losing some of your privacy in that regard. And then finally, what privacy concerns or abuses are important to recognize? Well, you have the ability, obviously, to select what you want to keep private in your profile, so you have those controls. Most of the time, you have to go in there and set them automatically. If not, the default is that they're accessible to all. But keep in mind that at least Facebook does provide some privacy controls that you're able to use. So think about applications when you look at or products that you have access to on how do these 3 questions pertain to that particular product or application. So let's focus on security now. So when we say security, are we talking about the physical security, financial security, or personal security? So how is privacy and security related? Well, there are 2 opposing views. The first one is that privacy is necessary in order for security to be achieved. In other words, if you have privacy, then security goes hand in hand so that you can secure the data so that it's not exfiltrated and privacy is maintained. Second, privacy must be sacrificed in order for security to be achieved. So the example we're seeing here is a TSA agent that will need to make sure that they go through your bags to be able to see if there's any kind of contraband or any kind of weapons or anything that can compromise the flight, for example. But again, in doing that, to enhance security, they are compromising your privacy. So this is always a duality in some cases with privacy and security. And then some schools of thought is that privacy promotes security, as we're seeing in the first point here. So a working definition of cybersecurity, and you can read it, but the important part is that the Joint Task Force on Cybersecurity Education in December 31st, 2017, came up with this definition. And the part that's bolded that says, it is an interdisciplinary course of study, including aspects of law, policy, human factor, ethics, and risk management. This normally is looking at the interaction between hardware, software, data, and people. The security issues must be considered while you're developing, deploying, and maintaining these systems. So this is the definition of cybersecurity. So let's see what effective problems can cybersecurity address. So first of all, these are the 2 questions we want to look at. What practical problems can be addressed and what ethical problems can be addressed? Now to do that, let's look at a scenario. Suppose you are responsible for designing the privacy and security mechanisms for an online child's game. How will you address practical and ethical issues? So let's think about this. You're building an online game and you want children to play it, and but you want to also provide some controls. The more controls you provide, probably the less attractive the game might be to the players. So you are looking at what you have a practical problem, which is you want to provide the greatest functionality possible, but at the same time, that functionality might go against some of the ethical aspects of what you're trying to do. So it is very important to try to balance these as you're looking at security and privacy as your driving factors on how practical you're going to make that particular game that you're building, and then how are you addressing the ethical issues so you are straddling the needs to maintain privacy and security in these systems. And then finally, what are the public expectations of privacy and security? What are the social expectations of public privacy and security of cybersecurity? So now let's look at the public expectations of security. Let's look at the public expectation of privacy and security. What are the social's expectation? Let's look at the public expectation of privacy and security. What are society's expectation of public policy, the privacy legislation, to enforce cybersecurity? Well, some well-known laws that govern products and practices in specific areas can now be identified. In education, you have FERPA. In healthcare, you have HIPAA. In the finance, you have Sarbanes-Oxley. In commerce, you have the PCI DSS. And then finally, in children online protection, you have COPPA. So these are the laws that have been enacted. In some cases, some of these laws are outdated, and they do need a refresher, because from the time that they were actually passed and accepted to where we have evolved currently in technology, many of these need to have a revision, or in some cases they already have. But again, keep in mind that as technology advances, these laws need to also encompass the new areas that this technology is now being accessed.